That's all that we don't.
I like the old typewriter.
Remington, was
It's a nice little prop.
Just
Just there, you know. How does it sound? Does it sound good? You want to record just a little?
hello, 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 1, 2, 3, Ganpat.
Yes. Count to 10 in Telugu.
Sound in Telugu. No.
Count to
1, 2, 3, Ganpat. Baunda? Bagunda?
You check, come.
Are you keeping them until an exhibition?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I understand that.
You are the first person to look at it.
I
Have a
understand.
look.
I get shouted at by my gallery sometimes. It's Visakhapatnam, am I saying that
Yes,
right?
yes.
Visakhapatnam.
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. We sounding good? We're recording?
Around the ground.
Hello, this is Evil O, once again, coming to you today from Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh. And we're really, really lucky because we're with a very, very important and excellent artist in my name, Mr. Ramesh, but mostly
Hello.
known as V Ramesh. How are
Yes.
you today?
Fine. Thank you, Vasu.
It's okay if I call you Ramesh?
Call me Ramesh.
I'll call you
us,
Ramesh.
Saves us a lot of trouble. And it's been such a pleasure and privilege to have you here because I've been seeing and hearing your videos of my friends, of students. And the thought once struck me, will this guy ever come to Vizag? And here you are. I mean,
I always did want to come here. Visakhapatnam has been on my list for so long.
Yes.
Because when I first met the young printmakers in Baroda,
Yes.
Soga Kurasani, Jagdish Tamanyeni, I think a few more,
Yeah.
they all talked about Visakhapatnam and said that's the place.
Yes, right.
And they talked about, they said there were always two instructors they mentioned. They always mentioned Sudhakar Reddy and V Ramesh. Those were the two who said that inspired them and kept them going.
Strange, I was talking about, this is something which I share with a friend of mine, Indro, whom you have interviewed. Both of us have had careers as painters, as artists, alongside a parallel career of teaching, which actually involves a lot of energy, time and effort. And I think both of us have done a pretty good job of it. I mean, come to think of it.
Well, Indra Pramit is really known as a, I always forget to switch off my phone lately. Indra Pramit is really known as a teacher, and the
Yes.
students just love him, and you
Yes.
seem to be the same way.
Yes, but the problem with me when I first joined here, the university, which was about 35 years back, I didn't want to come here. It was back or beyond this town. And the whole idea of being stuck up in some kind of academic cesspool, not being able to paint, was what worried me. But I think in the longer run, probably that's the wisest thing I've ever done in my life, because there was time to paint. There was also this exciting thing of going to the classroom in the morning and you have these young, bright, excited faces looking up to you as if you're going to give them some kind of treasure, which might not be true, but yes, it was very exciting for me. And I think it has been a very fruitful journey to me as a teacher, which again, I keep stressing always, has helped me as a painter and as an artist.
Well, you're so communicative. You know, and you just radiate this excitement about life. I mean, I sense that with you very much, just having been with you for a short time now, but you're just like, you're enthusiastic about life.
And that's something which I probably consciously cultivated it in the beginning, but now it's become part of my nature. Because when you walk into a classroom of 20, 30 kids with bored looks on their faces, what makes them excited? What is it that I should do which can actually make them sit on their seats and say, hey, this guy is talking sense? So there were things to be innovated, there were stories to be created and told, there were anecdotes about my own student days, people like Nasreen, whom I would always quote. So this, I realize in the longer run, actually helps you.
People like it so much if you can make it personal, a little entertaining, rather than purely like they're attending a symposium and they're taking notes,
So I'm very well for the fact that I just shout in the morning when I enter the college. And they say they miss that shouting of mine because I have a very loud voice. I'm a big loud mouth.
Were you angry?
Not really. But this whole mock anger, where I would tell someone, threaten someone, I'm going to break their leg because they're not working, they're loitering around. And I think they kind of enjoyed that kind of, also because it showed my concern. It showed my concern that here are this bunch of kids who come from a background which is totally deprived of any kind of privileges which other people enjoy. And I, for some reason, felt that I have to do something. Shake them up and say, hey, listen, get out into the big bad world and prove yourself. Jagdish was such a genuine kid.
Oh, Jagdish he sings your praises. You and Sudhakar Reddy, he just
so in a
sings
way,
your praises.
I think we have, when you're going to talk to Sudhakar, he's such a quiet person. I think we are both totally opposite in that sense. But perhaps this two different poles or two different ways of communicating help the students.
I hope to interview Jagdish while I'm down here. In fact, he's around the studio here somewhere.
He's here.
But he's so quiet and soft-spoken, and he's still rather shy, even though he's teaching now. But he's a fabulous artist, and that's the thing many people don't understand in this day and age. I think they expect artists to be very articulate and academic, and well-versed, blah 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 blah. But many artists are they're visual. That's what they do.
Vasu, I'm telling you, I'm stressing today, reiterating that this boy, Jagdish, who's so silent, is an amazing teacher. I've seen him taking the first year's newly fresh batch, and within a few months, he's just worked miracles with them. Quietly, he would be whispering something. I would not barge in, but I would see him smiling, whispering, saying something softly. 6 months of their kind of entrance into the college, I see this bunch of youngsters doing amazing work. And then he did an exhibition on Gandhi, which was amazing. If it was elsewhere, I could imagine the kind of laurels it would have got. But, Vizag being a small town and all said and done, that is perhaps what goaded me in the beginning, that all these kids are at a disadvantage. Not that I was going to do some great social work, but to see if I could in some way help in my own capacity to push them a bit.
That's so important.
That I think. And teaching skills has never been my forte. I don't believe in imparting skills. I can tell them draw a tree 10 times. But I think it's the attitude towards your work. It's the whole aesthetic.
I think skills are things you yourself have to develop.
Yes.
You have to learn the skills,
and
but people can inspire you to learn them.
Yes. And then the whole idea which is very prevalent today, is of technique. They think I have some special techniques. They ask me, what is this technique? There are no technique. Then I tell them, there are no special techniques. One has to innovate and think of ways and means of saying something in your own manner, or in a manner which is totally different, which is very effective. So I think that had to be drilled into the mind, and plus of course the whole attitude to work. It's the whole aesthetic propositions, which the way you look at the world and the way you transform it into your work.
So anyway, Ramesh, I want to ask you about your own art, because you were starting to touch on that. And one thing about your art, which I'm not that well versed in, but I know enough about it, it seems, one thing that amazes me is you seem to have this amazing ability to go from almost a hyper-realistic style, and then suddenly you're just like in abstraction almost, you know.
Yes,
and many times when you look at your paintings, it's like they appear to be abstractions at first, and beautiful abstractions, but then the closer you look, then all these little things emerge, you know.
I think
so
some
talk
of the,
about this.
Well, yes. I think perhaps the way of looking at the world which changed for me was 20 years back or 22 years back when I first went to this place called Arunachalam. You have been there. You see the mountain.
Tiruvannamalai.
Tiruvannamalai, yes.
Tiruvannamalai, yes.
So
incredible place.
Yes. So I happened to go to this ashram which is there, the Ramana ashram, and I have been going for the last 22 years. I just go there to recharge my batteries, and I go there and sit. I cannot sit cross-legged and meditate, but for me the best thing to meditate is to sit quietly under some tree or on a bench and watch the world going by. The peacocks, the monkeys, the devotees, the dogs. And at some point it hit me that all these are so connected. All of us are connected. You know, so this whole question of me and the others did not exist. It was not a sudden revelation, but I think it kind of dawned slowly.
Tiruvannamalai, I found it the short time I was there, which was only like maybe, 10 days or something like that. But it influenced me too in a strange way too, because I come from a very, Western, rational, enlightenment. And I still believe in all that stuff basically. But I was sitting there with Abul Kalam Azad. I don't know if you know him.
I know him.
Abul Kalam, who's quite crazy and fun, and I love him to death. And he was telling me a story about how, that the belief was that, 300 kilometers in this direction or something, there was a mountain, and on top of the mountain were sadhus that lived to be over 1,000 years old, and blah, blah, blah. And it's the sort of thing that in a normal state of mind, I would just dismiss as, well, that's totally unscientific and it's bakwas. But in that setting, with that mountain and those clouds circling that mountain, I just felt like, somehow this seems like it's a possibility. It seems like it's a possibility there.
No, yes. Leaving aside the mumbo jumbo and everything which goes around it, I think perhaps the place perhaps helped me in re-looking at the world with all its physicality in a totally different manner. The ashram has a fantastic library where, call it coincidence or call it chance, I came across amazing books of poetry of medieval bhakti poets or the devotional poetry. Especially some of these women poets were fantastic. I can name a few like Akka Mahadevi, who's from Karnataka, 12th century. Then there was this woman called Karikal Amma, 5th century. There's a beautiful statue of her ugly body in America, which I saw in a museum. I think it was museum. This woman actually asks God to give her such an ugly, frightening appearance that no man would look at her with desire, so that she's kind of liberated, from the male gaze, and she wanders around dancing and singing in cremation ground. That was an amazing thing.
That's a wonderful story.
That's a wonderful.
That's a wonderful story.
And there was this Kashmiri poet called Lal Ded. I think Nilima has also painted. Lal Ded was again 14th century. All of these women, across geographical boundaries and time span, they were separated by centuries, lived in an age where there was no internet. This woman never knew that 2 centuries before somebody else was articulating and talking about the same thing which she had done, but their work and their voices were so different, so similar. And then it struck me, perhaps the kind of experiences, spiritual or otherwise, which they have had must have been so similar. The human experience of oneness. I will not use the word God loosely here, but I would say the oneness of existence, the way we are connected, and perhaps a questioning mind, questioning the physicality of the body of what we see. And to see if one can go underneath the skin of the
I see spirituality of some sort in your art. I also see a lot of sort of mythological stuff is going on, obviously. But you put it together in such an interesting way, and it seems to be developed in layers.
It does. So in a way, for me, when you talk of layers and a work like this or a work like that, what happens is when a viewer comes and stands before the work, I notice that nowadays or elsewhere, the attention span can be so less. I mean, your gaze skims over the surface of the canvas.
Yeah, the average is something like 20 seconds in front of a painting in a museum.
So there was this whole attempt,
but
can I catch hold of it and see if they pull them in. So if an audience can perhaps stand for a bit long and say, what's happening under this surface? Hey, there's something else here. So it's that interesting visual surface which one endeavors to develop. And perhaps also going to the Ramana Ashram has also liberated me in a way from doing work which is stylistically Ramesh, which can be recognized as V Ramesh. So there is, on one hand, I can do something which can be hyper-realistic because I felt that it demands.
Like the banana inside the rib cage.
Yes.
And the one I really like is the fallen banana that you call the fallen warrior or something.
Yes.
That's an incredible piece, because it's just a banana stalk, I believe, on the ground. But it really looks like a dead body.
Yes. And nowadays, when I'm painting things here, all my subjects in which I kind of imbue them with my own, let's say, feelings or emotions or strong emotional resonances, I had a plant I painted. In fact, Unti had posted something, the creeper which is going up. There was one which was so upright, it was almost like a straight military man. In fact, I painted that creeper standing. So there are these simple things that unless one can inculcate or imbue or suffuse these ordinary looking mundane things with what's inside you, and they become extraordinary.
Right. But see, the way you're talking now, you're so like full of enthusiasm and sort of upbeat and very spiritual. Yet sometimes I look at some of your paintings, they seem very dark, and I almost want to compare them to some works by somebody like Ganesh Pine.
Oh my God.
I mean, they just get very dark. And am I totally off base with that?
I certainly am not a very great enlightened person, Maso. I think I have my own doubts. I have my own areas of anxiety and which are passing, which perhaps are less nowadays, because one knows that this too shall pass. So but there are moments, and they are reflected in the work. It's like, if you're here, and if you have the time, I'll show you some recent work which nobody has seen yet.
That would be great.
Watercolors and gouache. They're all still lifes.
That was one of my questions. Do you only use oil on canvas?
No, I've just started now using watercolors, which actually kind of gravitated towards gouache because I kept using so many layers that the transparency went off, which I was not bothered. But when the pandemic started, this whole thing, everybody was so upset and flustered, and there were all kind of things happening on Facebook, visual media, about people getting flustered and paranoid about the new this or what's happening. I said, I'm going to sit and do some lovely, happy paintings. This is what I decided. So I said, I'm going to paint a bunch of flowers. I mean, there's nothing more happier than I hated painting still lifes when I was a student. I was going to start it. So I started, and they turned out to be something totally different from what I envisaged.
I can insert, these are your new works?
Yes.
I'll insert those into the video. So if you want to talk about some of them individually or something, I'll just insert
No, but you can probably, nobody has seen them.
Oh, are you keeping them until an exhibition?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I understand that.
You are the first person to look at it.
I understand. I get shouted at by my gallery sometimes for posting things on Facebook too early.
And this gallery has been insisting that I post pictures. I said I'm not doing it because it's like a half-eaten meal. I can't. I mean, unless I finish the whole thing, and if there's a closure to the whole group of work, I cannot do it. And surprisingly, I think in a work or two, some of these clay statues have entered, which is nice. in a way, as part of this still life. So I'm open to the idea that let these things come into the work.
Right.
Earlier, perhaps I would have been very uncomfortable using images which were not my fault or which did not kind of fit into my scheme of things. Now I let the world with all its contradictions or everything come into the work. I'm open to the idea.
What do your paintings explore? I mean, I just see them as explorations of humanity and the different facets of humanity.
It's not just a plant. It's not. I think it's
always
about
an exploration of humanity in some way.
Yes, it's our own existence. It's the way we live. Perhaps oblique reference to our own existence and our being. Not necessarily through human figures, but everything which surrounds it. It could be animals, could be a plant, or could be a human figure. In that sense, perhaps I have widened my vocabulary from limiting myself just to painting human figures, which I did earlier. My earliest work when I was in Visakhapatnam was of the fishermen.
Oh, okay,
I'll probably show you a few works.
I read an old bio of yours that said something that you love to paint the sea and fishermen, and somehow I didn't relate that to you really.
But it's strange. But I mean, there was this whole muscular figures painted near the sea.
Okay.
A whole bursting physicality of the thing. But then I suppose, as I said, the questioning happened, and one realized that underneath the external surface or the skin, there's something else which is pulsating, which is alive, which is perhaps as much part of our existence. When I'm talking about all these things, it sounds nice, but to actually find a vocabulary, a painterly vocabulary, to convert this is a damn hard job, which has been my endeavor. So there have been all kind of attempts at doing different things, because one is trying to find ways and means of perhaps articulating through paint what I'm saying through words.
This is getting a little long, but I just want to, before it closes, talk about your work that you had at the India Art Fair a number of years ago with the Four Sisters. What was the full name of it?
Yes, Sanctum Sanctorum.
Sanctum Sanctorum.
A corner for four sisters.
A corner for four sisters. Okay, talk about that.
Okay. This was a kind of a space, enclosed space, which I had designed and made out of 17 paintings. And the four sisters referred to the four medieval women poets, whom I was reading a lot, whose work I really moved me a lot over a period of time. And so obviously there were references to these four women poets by painting the words they wrote, along with the imagery which could correspond to the kind of emotional resonances and echoes these words left in me. So I use all kind of things to do this.
So the viewer walked in and
you walked in and you were kind of surrounded.
And there were 17 of them.
17 of them.
Wow. That was 2012.
12.
Okay.
Yes. So I've been thinking all this while that perhaps, or maybe my mind has changed a bit, or perhaps I can do a more refined version of it, where instead of a work on a wall, one walks into a work, maybe a whole painted room. Maybe it can be my last work.
Well, I thought that the one that you did was quite refined as it was, from what I've seen of it.
So that was that. And the whole anxiety for me arises from the fact that how do I find an appropriate language to convey this sense of urgency of, if I may use the word devotion, but devotion can be very close to passion, which has its... And I've often realized that all these poets, extreme devotion almost borders on hints of sexuality. What in English they would call bridal mysticism.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Now, how do I mean, I would love to put myself in a situation where probably every hair is bristling with some kind of longing, some kind of desire for, and it translates into my work. So that has been my, let's say, endeavors in the past years.
That's what you've been pursuing. Okay, I'm going to have to end this. I think it's getting long.
Yes.
V Ramesh.
Thank you so much, Vasu.
Vedin Batla Ramesh. Thank you so much. And let's do the elbow bump since it's COVID times. Though they were sitting very closely together as it was. So I'm going to say goodbye. First I have to say, everybody please like and subscribe, especially subscribe. The channel needs subscriptions. It helps us a lot to keep doing this kind of thing. And thank you, V Ramesh. Wave goodbye. Goodbye from Evil O. Wave goodbye. Bye.
Now, let's have the fan.
I think now I just have to check that it recorded properly.
Okay.